We're starting this one off with the claps, people. I usually only like to clap when there's something like a big trade that was made or a fantastic game. But the Utah Jazz have just been on a roll lately, and they are worthy of a round of applause. This team just does not get the credit that it deserves consistently, year in and year out. I get it, they haven't had the playoff success that you would want them to have, but they are the epitome of a model franchise in the NBA, from the top to the bottom. At the top, they have an owner who has been willing to spend. He paid Rudy Gobert. He paid Donovan Mitchell. This is going to be an expensive roster, but he's willing to pay those luxury tax bills in order for them to compete. Their general manager and the front office as a whole has made spectacular moves over the past few years. Their drafting has been terrific. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Gordon Hayward, dating back many years, they've been excellent in that aspect. They've picked up some really good fringe players like Joe Ingles and Royce O'Neal, who have ended up being good rotational guys. This Jazz front office is top notch. Continuing to move down, Quinn Snyder is the coach of the year so far in the NBA. I feel pretty strong about that. What this Jazz team has done has been terrific, and I think that he has been a large part of that. You could make an argument for some other guys like Doc Rivers or JB Bickerstaff or Tom Thibodeau, but if I had a vote, I would be giving it to Quinn Snyder at this particular juncture of the season, because what he's had this Jazz team doing over this stretch has just been absolutely fantastic on both ends of the floor. They come into every game with a set and specific game plan, and they execute it to the highest level that they possibly can. They also have bounced back to some very huge losses in the lineup. Donovan Mitchell has missed the past 2 games to concussion protocol. Derek Favors has struggled. Next man up, Juwan Morgan comes in, drops 12 points, and grabs 7 boards off the bench. This is just a team that is very well coached, and continuing to move down, they have some excellent players that are absolute class acts. I want to shout out my guy right here, Donovan Mitchell. As you would know if you've been sticking around this channel, one of my 3 favorite players in the NBA. I think that he's fantastic, and I want to congratulate him on winning the award for the NBA Cares Player of the Year, whatever that specifically was. I'm not sure what the actual title was. Donovan, I know you watch every single video that I make, so I want to thank you for what you do for your community and congratulate you on winning this prestigious award. Every single NBA player watches these videos, as they do with every NBA YouTuber. NBA YouTube is very popular among NBA players as a whole. But getting back to the Jazz, this team has just been so hot lately. They cannot stop losing. This was their 11th straight win. They moved to 15-4 and in sole possession of first place in the Western Conference, half a game ahead of the Los Angeles Clippers. And I'm willing to say it. A lot of people have been hesitant, but the Utah Jazz are contenders. This is a team that can win a championship. They are just so well constructed around a network of players who are able to score at a high level. Donovan Mitchell obviously can create shots for himself. Mike Conley is terrific in the pick and roll, is a good passer, and can knock down shots from beyond the arc. Bojan Bogdanovic appears to be getting back into a rhythm and a flow. Tonight was his best game of the season. He had 32 points on 10 for 16 shooting, 7 for 11 from 3. I really liked what he did. It seemed like he was just kind of reorienting himself to the basics of the Bojan Bogdanovic offensive game. He was taking advantage of mismatches when he could get them and working on those guys in the post. He was knocking down open looks from 3 when he had them, and towards the end of the game, his confidence seemed to be coming back, and he knocked down a couple off the dribble threes as well. So I loved what I saw from him here, and he just gives this team another outstanding threat to score from the perimeter. And then you have the guys off the bench, Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson. Oh, and I forgot about Royce O'Neal, who's an excellent 3-and-D wing guy. But off the bench, you've got Clarkson, who can just hit any shot in the world. He plays with such confidence, and he's becoming a more efficient scorer because he's taking those mid-range jumpers he was so proficient at knocking down in the past, and now he's knocking down threes. Joe Ingles can run the pick and roll at a very high level and has established an excellent chemistry with all of the big men on this roster. Derek Favors has struggled to open up this season. I thought that he was one of the top 20 to 25-ish centers in the NBA, and so I thought that that was a nice pickup for them to be running their backup center, but he hasn't been able to man that at the level they wanted him to. The team has still struggled with giving up large amounts of points when their anchor, Rudy Gobert, has been off the court. Oh, and I forgot to touch on Gobert, as he's, in my opinion, the most important player on this Jazz team. Tonight, he had 17 and 12 on 5 for 7 shooting. Also shot a very promising 7 for 8 from the free throw line. I believe he's been under 50% from the line so far on the season. And tonight, he knocked down 7 of those 8 attempts. It looked really good. He had some arc on his shot that was a little unusual, as a lot of the time it's just kind of a line drive. So that's definitely promising from Rudy, but why I think he's so important doesn't have anything to do with the scoring. And quite honestly, he is a great rebounder, but that's not really where it's coming into effect either. It's the defense. Like, come on. 2-time Defensive Player of the Year is right there to win it again this year. I think it's him and Miles Turner in my mind. It'll be, if the season ended today, it would be one of those two. I'm sure that either one of those two will separate themselves by the end of the season, they'll stay close, or someone else will jump into the conversation. Who knows? But if the season ended today, he'd be a top 2 guy in DPOY for me. Just what he does as a whole, as an anchor for your defense, as a guy who can make your defense a top 10 unit, a top 5 unit all by himself, is just so impressive. When he's off the court, they give up points at a much higher rate than when he is on it. And that just shows you how impactful he would be. Donovan Mitchell went out with injury. The next 2 games, they blew out a bona fide playoff team in the Dallas Mavericks. More on the Mavericks later. I'm focusing on the Jazz for now. But if Rudy Gobert went out, I don't think that this team would be able to win all that many games. You'd be counting on Derek Favors and Juwan Morgan at even higher rates than you are already. And while I think both of those guys can function at a solid rate as big men off the bench, Favors as a traditional guy, Morgan as a small ball big who can switch off and shoot the 3, I don't think I would want either of them starting, and I certainly don't want 48 minutes being distributed between the two of them at the center position. So I think Gobert's the most important player here, but oh man, this team is good. They can win this championship, and I feel sorry for anyone who's missing out on this fantastic stretch of basketball they've been playing. I love watching them play every game. I have them circled, and if they're on national television, I'm sure to tune in. So yeah, the Jazz are terrific. Give them the respect they deserve. Moving on to the Mavericks, just a little bit. I'm not going to talk about them as extensively as I did the Jazz, but there are a few things that I think we can take away from this game. Luka, well, we'll start with the good, and then we'll move on to the bad. And the good with this team, as usual, is Luka Doncic. Luka had 25 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 8 for 7 shooting, got to the line 10 times, made 7 of those free throws. Luka is a spectacular player. He's right there in the NBA conversation, a top 5 guy, at the very least a top 10 guy in the MVP race so far this year, depending on how much you value team win-loss record. But Luka has been great, and he was great once again tonight. Made 2 threes, showed some great patience inside the paint, as there were a few times where he used ball fakes to great effect, either to draw a foul and get to the line, or to get a defender to blow past him so that he would have an easy look at a layup. Like, Luka was great, but the reason why the Mavs lost this game was because of basically everything else. And that has to be pinpointed on Kristaps Porzingis. This team gave up so much to acquire Porzingis. Basically, their entire cabinet of assets in order to get him. And while I don't think anyone disagreed with that move, the fact that their plan to have cap space to sign a big name free agent this offseason has kind of fallen apart means that Porzingis needs to produce at a much higher level than he has. And while he is coming off of an injury, and I might look silly in a few weeks for saying this, It's not looking good for the Mavs right now if they're reliant on Kristaps Porzingis. Going into this year, I was very low on the Mavs. I had them graded as a play-in tournament team. Why? Because I thought that Porzingis missing time was going to really hurt this team. However, if he would have played for the whole season, I think I probably would have had this team 5th in the West, just barely behind Utah and Denver. But I had them as a play-in level team, and I haven't seen anything to make me change that. If Porzingis would have come back healthy, then yeah, there's a chance that I would have had them way too low in my preseason predictions. But Porzingis has not looked good so far. He looks hesitant. He doesn't have a whole lot of burst. He's missing dunks, which for someone as big as he is a problem. He doesn't have the same kind of pop on the defensive end as a rim protector, and he looks kind of lost in pick and roll coverages. This isn't good. The Mavericks need him. And if they aren't getting it from him, they need someone else to step up. And their third option is supposed to be Tim Hardaway Jr. for this season. And Hardaway had 2 points on 1 for 5 shooting tonight. The Jazz have a pretty good unit of perimeter defenders, but is it good enough to shut down Hardaway at that level? No, it's not. He needs to step it up more, especially when Porzingis is struggling with a matchup against Rudy Gobert the way he was tonight. The Mavericks, to me, are not all that good, and I don't think that's a hot take at this point, considering that they have been pretty bad to open up this season. I don't know if it's a coaching thing. I have a hard time noticing when coaches are doing a bad job, as I tend to blame it on the players a bit more than I do the coaching, but it's got to feel like Rick Carlisle's got to switch something up, because this team has really struggled to open up the season, and I'm not sure I see a way for them to improve unless Porzingis really bounces back in a strong way. Overall, though, my takeaway from this game is that the Utah Jazz are great. I had them finishing 3rd in the Western Conference heading into this season, and that was behind Denver. And I think that this team is quite a bit better than Denver, at least right now. I should have had them higher than I did, and I think that I was higher on them than most people were in general. I think that the average person probably had them as the 5th or 6th seed. So that's a bit of a small personal victory for me. It's too bad I didn't put them higher, though, because quite obviously they've been even better than someone who was an optimist like I would have expected. So great start to the season for the Jazz. One last round of applause. And with all that being said, I appreciate you watching this video. I want to remind you to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. That's going to be it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.